Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us here today at Louisville Metro Hall. Just a couple quick updates. NTSB still remains at the site investigating the cause of the crash. Our teams have continued their outreach to businesses that have been impacted and to give them access to their property that is still restricted. LMPD is continuing to provide 24/7 coverage of this restricted area to protect the integrity of the investigation and also to protect public safety during these times. Our teams are working to reopen Grade Lane and all roads as quickly as we possibly can. This morning, I had an opportunity to stop by the Okolona Fire Department to thank the men and women of Okolona Fire for their incredible first response, being some of the first folks that were on the scene, being the lead fire department on the scene. They, working in partnership with Louisville Fire and the other fire departments, was truly incredible. Additionally, as we mentioned yesterday, a new hotline has been set up for anyone who has been impacted by the crash. That call center number again is 502-473-5271. That is open now. It will be open all days from 7 a.m. 9 p.m. Monday through Saturday. If you owned a business that was impacted, if you have lost your job as a result of being impacted, if you have been injured in some other way, if you believe that you have been negatively impacted by the crash, that is the number to reach out. Additionally, when you reach out, there may be an opportunity. We are getting ready to open tomorrow a community resource center. This community resource center will be by appointment that you can make by calling that line. It will be located at 200 High Rise Drive, right off of Fern Valley Road by I-65, to meet with individuals that can help you with the challenges that you may be facing as a result of the tragic UPS crash. One other person I want to thank is here with us today, and that's our Jefferson County Coroner, Joanne Farmer. Her and her team have been working tirelessly under incredibly challenging conditions around the clock to help recover all of the victims of this plane crash, to identify the bodies in the challenging conditions, and to notify the families of their losses. This work has been incredibly challenging, but great care has been taken by Joanne and her team, working as rapidly as possible so that identifications could be made as quickly as possible. At this point in time, we believe that all of the victims have been located, have been identified, and that families have been notified. So now I'd like to ask our Jefferson County Coroner, Joanne Farmer, to share a little bit more about the process and to also share with the community the list of the 14 victims who we lost in this tragic plane crash.
It really saddens me to have to be here and speaking to you about such a tragedy. All 14 victims have been identified. They were identified by DNA, some by DNA and dental records, some by DNA and medical records, but all of them were positively identified by the DNA. We finished this completion of testing about less than 24 hours ago, but it was all complete. All of the victims' families have been notified, and we've been working closely with them throughout this whole process. I'll go ahead and release the names now on Flight 2976. Captain Dana Diamond, 62 years old. Captain Richard Wartenberg, 57 years old. First Officer Lee Truitt, 45 years old. Angela Anderson, 45 years old. Carlos Fernandez, 52 years old. Louis Fedden, 47 years old. And Kimberly Asa, who was the granddaughter, 3 years old, of Mr. Fedden. Trinidad Trina Chavez, 37 years old. Continuing, there's Tony Crane, 65 years old. John Locks, 52 years old. John Spray, 45 years old. Matthew Sweets, 37 years old. Ella Petty Horton, 31 years old. And Megan Washburn, 35 years old. And on behalf of the entire coroner's office, to all the families, please accept again our sincere condolences for your tragic loss. Okay.
Thank you, Joanne. Thanks again to you and your entire team for the professionalism and the empathy that you all have shown. I know what a difficult process this must have been. Today, as we share the names of those who we've lost, our city feels the full weight of this unimaginable tragedy. Behind every one of these names is a circle of family, friends, stories that will forever be unfinished. I've heard it said that everyone dies twice. Once when you take your last breath, and again when your name is spoken for the last time. So as we hear these names today, let's never forget their lives, their laughter, their love, and all that they meant to those around them and to our entire city. Each of these victims represents a life full of purpose, interrupted far too soon, and also a life that will never fade, because we will always remember them. We will take care of their loved ones, walk with them through grief, and honor the lives they built by always saying their names. Captain Dana Diamond, Captain Richard Wartenberg, First Officer Lee Truitt, Angela Anderson, Carlos Fernandez, Trina Chavez, Tony Crane, John Lux, John Spray, Matthew Sweets, Ella Petty Wharton, Megan Washburn, Louisness Baden, and his granddaughter, Kimberly. May their memories be a blessing. May their memories strengthen us. May their families find comfort in knowing we stand beside them, not just today, but in all of the difficult days ahead. The funerals for these victims will begin in the coming days. And I ask our community, I ask the media to please respect the privacy of these families. If they request private funerals, please respect their privacy during these incredibly challenging times for the families of these 14 victims. During these times of tragedy and tragic loss, we also saw incredible acts of heroism, incredible acts of bravery, and fantastic public service. I've heard from the NTSB, from other federal partners, folks around the region, about the incredible work the first responder teams have done in response to UPS Flight 2976. And one of the ways that we provided a fantastic public service, I believe, during these challenging times is through the work of LMPD and their support of the victims' families over the past week. LMPD led that part of our response, and so now I'd like to call on Chief Paul Humphrey to talk a little bit more about that process and the work that they have been doing and will continue to do to support the families of each of these 14 victims. Chief Humphrey.
While we send our prayers and condolences to the families, there's going to be times where there will be stories that will be told about each one of the victims. But there's stories that will need to be told about everyone else as well. All of the first responders that rushed towards that fire and put their lives on the line. The employees of Grade A Auto Parts, one who tackled another employee in order to save his life, and then he got up and pulled the other one through the fire to get out. How Sean Garber has taken care of his employees, and his heart's just pouring out to them. He's doing everything he can to make sure that they get taken care of. But one of the things I do want to talk about is our victim services unit and how they were there from the very beginning to make sure that the families were taken care of in any way that we could. From the moment this crash happened, the victim services unit stood up the family assistance center over at our training academy. And what they did was they made sure that all of the questions that we could answer, even though they were few, got answered for the families. They made sure that the families ate. They made sure they had something to drink. They made sure that they could help connect them to the victims that were at the hospital. They kept them informed and they comforted them as much as possible. And when it came time for the end of the night, when we knew that there was no more work to be done that particular night, and we were not going to be able to give them any more information, they were talking about asking them to go home, pet your dog, hug your kids, get a little bit of rest if you can. And so what I told them is, okay to shut this down for the night. And they said, nope, we're going to stay here all night because if somebody shows up at 3 o'clock in the morning, we need to be here for them. And so for 2 days, our victim services unit worked 24 hours. And they stayed there making sure that anyone who needed anything had a resource that they could reach out to. And we hope that that type of service gave them just a little bit of comfort in the worst days of their life. And that's the type of work that you see from public service. That's what public service is about. It's about a test of character in the worst times possible and being able to be there for people when they need it the most. And I think that's what we saw, not just from LMPD, not just from the fire department, but we saw it from the average citizen, the average friend, the average family member, who, when their character was tested, they stepped up and showed what Louisville's all about.
Thanks, Chief. We'll take some questions from the media in a moment here, but just again to reiterate, for anyone else who is a survivor, who has been otherwise impacted by the crash, please call 502-473-5271 for some assistance. And again, that's every day except for Sunday, 7 a.m., 9 p.m. And you can make an appointment to speak in person with someone at the Community Resource Center that will be open at those same hours starting tomorrow. And again, to the families of the 14 victims, our condolences. We will continue to be here to support you in the weeks, months, and years ahead. May each of your loved ones' memories be a blessing. We're now happy to take some questions from members of the media. Stefan. So there are several categories. The question about what is being done for the families of the victims. UPS set up the original phone number and response, in addition to what you just heard the chief talk about, the support services that LMPD is providing if additional services are needed from other agencies. When it comes to financial and other support for each of these victims and their families, the UPS has been taking the lead on that right now in direct contact with each of the families. Everyone is going to have different needs. Of course, everyone has a funeral to come to pay for. But beyond that, there are so many other impacts that each one of these victims left for their families, and they'll be handling each one of those individually. The question was about how confident are we that no other victims will be found at the site. Right now, we have no reason to believe that there are any other victims at this site. The names that were on the lists that were copiously made by all of the people at the victim Family Center that you just heard the chief talk about. The names of those that are missing match the names of those who the coroner has identified as victims. The other individuals who were originally on that list that first night, LMPD has made contact with those other individuals, and so that we know, fortunately, they were not involved. There was some other reason that they were on that list, but they were not a victim of this crash. Yes. Well, what's on my heart today is just an emptiness, a feeling of loss for each of these 14 families. They certainly, the chief and I saw it that very first night when we were both at the Family Resource Center, and simply hugging the loved ones of people who were right there next to us, calling their family member and hearing the phone go right to voicemail time after time after time again, texting them and getting no response. They knew what the likely answers were at that time, but to have that certainty is, I hope, helpful closure for them. I know it certainly is not easy to hear, but I hope that with this certainty, their grieving can continue and turn to healing, and that they can begin to find ways to move forward, to recover from this trauma, and find joy and happiness in life once again, knowing it will never be the same without their loved one. The question was about services that are provided to first responders. They are aware of there are support services that we have here in Louisville Metro government. I believe that Oklahoma Fire Department and the other departments have also lined up additional services for first responders if they feel the need to speak with someone during this time, if certain people needed some time off as a result of the length of time that they stayed out at the crash site. That has been accommodated as well. So we've been working with that on a case-by-case basis. So the question was about businesses that they still don't have access to or vehicles that were left behind. We have reached out, our emergency responders, emergency management team has reached out to businesses that we're aware of in this location to provide them with sort of escorted access to their property to get anything that they need or to keep their business functioning as best as they can. In terms of when they will have full access to the property, we just don't know yet. Public safety comes first. The investigation is being completed. We know the pressure that we feel that we're putting on ourselves to get people back into their businesses, to get back going again. There are employees that are right now without a job because businesses are closed. We want them to get back into business. So we're working as hastily as we can, but of course, public safety comes first, and the NTSB needs to be able to complete their aspects of the investigation to give us access. Oh. The question was about NTSB and any new information and how long they'll be on the site. I defer those questions to the NTSB. They're the primary point of contact to release that information publicly. And I know they're working incredibly hard every single day. They didn't let the cold and the snow flurries, they didn't let that deter them from being out there to continuing the work. Other agencies, such as the EPA that was just with us yesterday, is continuing their work as well. I think it's a more complicated and larger debris field than they originally thought. And so I think it's going to take a little bit longer than they thought. How to measure that, I defer those questions to them. I don't want to get ahead of the NTSB. Right now, it's the NTSB. I mean, we're giving them access to the site. They've got control to make sure that they can continue their investigation. At the same time, we're doing all the things that we believe we need to do from a public safety perspective so that when they no longer need it to be cordoned off, that it's safe and clean. Again, vehicles that are going into the site have to be power washed before they leave the site on top of sand. We're making sure that everyone has their power back. So there are still things like that that are public safety in nature. We hope those are completed around the same time that the NTSB releases the site from their investigation as well. And then, or at least so that we can shrink it. Might not go back to totally open, but at least to shrink it so that folks that have businesses along grade A and for traffic and the like can be reopened. So if you were a business, I'm sorry? It will provide someone who can take your information and evaluate the reason, the type of impact that you had, and begin to provide some assistance as a business owner, or if you're an employee that's been impacted, or if you've been injured but you are still living. Each individual that may be impacted might have a different situation, and so the evaluation of those claims will begin, understanding that for some people, it's cash today. They've got to feed a family. They don't have a job as a result of this crash. Each person is going to be individual. Sure.
Personally, you say? Well, everyone is saddened by it. Everyone, it's a tragedy. And when you're in the middle of it and working, and you're in there and you're trying to locate the bodies, looking for body parts and so forth, your mind's busy with that. But now that we have become a little bit settled now, and we're down and we've already made death notification to the families, that was rough on them. There were a group of us yesterday that were doing that. And that's where I think our emotions start to rise at that point, because the search is not completely over, but primarily over. And I had a family member ask me yesterday, how do you ever get used to this? And I said, I don't. If I get used to this and it doesn't bother me anymore, I'm in the wrong profession. I need to move on to something else. So we have a lot of talking at the office. We are a really strong bond there. And I think there's almost a sense of relief that now we feel like we have all of them, and a sense of relief at this point now. Mm-hmm.
I believe, but I'm not certain, that UPS has made contact with the victim's family, but I defer to UPS on that question. I've been in contact with UPS executives, met with some today, and meeting with some tomorrow. I will be sure to relay that concern as well to them to make sure they are aware of it if they are not already. So all of that is being worked out. Those are some of the discussions that we began to have today about the process for reimbursement from the city's perspective, from the other agencies' perspective. Under federal law, following an airplane crash, there are certain things that the airline is required to pay for example, the funeral costs of each of the victims of the crash, and that's all specified by federal law. So we have a team of people, as does UPS right now, that's going through that. Some of it is insurance, some may be the company directly. There may be other parties that are involved in the repayment, and so we're working through all of that right now and trying to figure that out from the city's perspective, for other public agencies, and also I know that's a question for those who have been impacted, victims, their families, and others who are impacted. One more question, Emma. So I don't have a specific, the question was, where does all the oil that's been in the basin, where that's collected? I don't have a specific answer for you on that. I defer to MSD for that technical answer. but this is not the first time they've been cleaning up hazardous materials that are in the waterways or in the ground, or in this case, 30,000 gallons of oil that fortunately got into a basin that has been protected from getting into any of the waterways. So there are special crews that this is what they do. They remove hazardous materials safely and then dispose of them safely. What that specific process is, I'll defer to MSD on that, but that's what they're doing. It's not just being dumped somewhere else in an unsafe way. We will continue to keep you all updated with any information that we have available as it relates to the investigation. Again, that will primarily come from NTSB, but we do encourage everyone who's been impacted to call that number, to visit with the Community Resource Center, and we will continue to be here to support the community and those impacted. Thank you all very much.